Hey everybody, it's Chris Jesty, and joining me tonight is the illustrious, wonderful. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
It's pirate.
And we're going to be going over the VPT or Jesty Open or Jesty Invitational, whatever you guys want to call it. But I'm calling it the Virtual Pod Tournament. And specifically today, we're going to be going over the maps. The tournament's going to start in about 4 days or 5 days from now. And I just want to give everybody a rundown. That way, there's no surprises come tournament day. There have been some changes from the initial release of these when I first threw them out into the wild, and due to careful feedback from players like Pirate and Vapor and a handful of others like Dragon Noob and Forrester, there have been changes made to the maps to accommodate and make sense and make the games and maps more playable and the objectives more doable. So, Pirate, this first map we have is King of the Hill. That's going to be the mission objective. And I called the map Lord of the Pit. So, there, as you can see here, it's symmetrical or as symmetrical as I could possibly get it.
I'm really enjoying this because even though it's symmetrical, you have very dedicated lines to get into the middle of the map there. So everyone has the same chance of getting there at the same speed. So whether you're left or right, east or west, you can still guarantee whatever tactic you're practicing is going to work.
Yeah, as you can see here, there's one, two, three, and four level zero direct runs. Well, actually, they're level -2, but for all intents and purposes, they're level zero for this map.
Now, also, visually, this map is a lot more interesting than the normal Grasslands 1 we've been playing on.
Also true. I decided to have some fun with some of the themes here, just to change it up. This is the Alien Worlds theme, so you'll notice I changed. Well, I didn't change. I used snow over the purple because having a whole map of bright purple would kind of hurt your eyes after a while. So I left just the middle unsnowed, and that's where the objective area is for King of the Hill.
So
So you
what's
have
all this stuff that looks like the inside of the Chinese that's left in my fridge for too long?
these are actually forests. They're mushroom forests, all in this area, going all the way around the map. It gave you a nice little mushroom circle there. These they function exactly like forests do. Some of them are heavy. These right here are heavy forests, and they serve a specific purpose. And this one right here in the middle of the map is also a heavy forest. The rest should all be light, if I'm not mistaken, or if my finger didn't slip and I made some heavy on accident. But the rest of them are all light. And as you can tell, they're often kind of no man's land, away from the objective for the most part.
And I like that you have isometric view turned on because there's a lot of these elevation changes that I'm sure we'll get into that are important to understand.
Yes, definitely. Some of them are more important than others. There's a level one right here and level one little trench right here. These I added in just to give a little more variety. That way, if you have some ground units, you can use it as cover to an extent, but there's so many forests up here that you probably aren't going to get line of sight more than 3 or 4 hexes away. Like you definitely can't get line of sight through this absolute, unit of a forest down here. And that's intentional. This map is for King of the Hill, and you should be fighting over the hill, not sniping at the hill from across the.
You're using hill with very heavy air quotes here.
Yes, when I say hill, I mean pit. There is actually some hills on here, and I'll point them out right now. There's a level 2 bridge going around the center. This isn't all of this in the middle is not the objective area. Only these 7 hexes that this blue blob in the middle is touching are the objective area. Everything else here is not the objective. So this is all just place where you should be fighting over the objective.
Now, I really like those ridges though because it kind of encourages everybody to get into the pit, so you can't just have a bunch of snipers, line up on your deployment zone and cause death and havoc. Like I love my Sun Cobra, but this is not a map for the Sun Cobra.
Yeah, the last thing you want to see in King of the Hill is a Mexican standoff where nobody wants to go to the hill because it's no man's land and there's absolutely zero cover and you're just going to get picked apart from, an LRM carrier that's hiding 7 hexes away behind level 1 hill. There will be none of that.
Now, another thing that I thought, I don't know if this was inspired genius or just luck, and in your case, that could be either. But if you were to move a unit from the ground up to the level 2 to stand on top of the ridge to fire into the pit, that's a 2 level change. That's going to eat a lot of movement. So, whatever stands up there is probably going to be a sitting duck for all the units in the pit to fire at if they wanted to with no TMM.
Oh no, that was most definitely intentional. And on top of that, they're all swamps. Every single one of those level 2 hexes is a swamp. So if you want to sit up top and have free reign picking away at everything in the pit, you can, but you're going to pay for it by being in the swamp. So if you do end up making a PSR and you do fall, it's not going to be fun for you.
Just imagine getting your trying to go over the top World War I trench style onto the hill to get into the pit, and then you get stuck and you roll a failure for 3 turns. That would just be awful.
And that's exactly why these channels are here, so that you don't have to go over the top. You can just go right through the trench.
Was it the Cassell run?
Oh, yeah, the Kessel Run.
See, I've
Well,
never heard it pronounced.
close enough. One thing you'll notice is that there are 2 heavy woods here, specifically to block line of sight into the pit, so that you have to be within this fairy circle of swamps, if you will, in order to be able to shoot at whatever is fighting over the pit. So, Pirate, is there anything else that you think is important or that might need to be pointed out?
So one thing I wanted to call out is that I've got the opportunity to practice this map twice so far. And one thing that's become very apparent is that trench is a very good way to get into the pit, but those heavy woods, as you called out, the line of sight blocking, are a problem. So I've got a rather slow list, so I have to try to find a way to get into that pit as quickly as possible. And when it takes me 3 turns, because my fastest unit is a 3-5, that isn't very fast. So
No,
it's
no, it's not.
No, so here's the problem is something will get into that pit before I can. So what I decided to do, and I think this is something other people may take advantage of, is well, I can't see the middle. What if I just shoot through those heavy woods and reduce them to light and rubble? Well, then at least I got a firing lane into the pit and I can start annihilating stuff that's in there while I'm chonking up.
That's not a bad strategy. If you're not mobile, the terrain is destructible for the majority of these maps. Actually, for all of the maps, all of the terrain is destructible. And some of them you need to destroy on purpose, but we'll get into that later.
Now,
But that's definitely a strategy you can take advantage of.
a double-edged sword though, because I started doing that and then I went, wait a minute. If I walk through these, I turn heavy woods into rough. Well, I just gave myself a PSR trying to get to the middle of the damn map. So double-edged sword there, but you could take advantage of reducing some of these heavies to lights at least, and at least it gives you line of sight of some sort.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to pretty much everything. So you're gonna have to. Your mileage may vary. You may be able to get to the center without even shooting at them on turn 1, depending on what you're bringing.
Now, this applies to all the maps we're about to see, but there's a little extra trick you put into this event for heavy woods since we're on the subject of heavy woods, right?
That is correct. There is going to be an optional rule. I don't remember if it's unofficial or not, but we'll be using it regardless, where jumping into heavy woods generates a PSR.
So some of those things like the center of the pit or those hexes around it, you jump into there to try to save yourself and capture or dominate an objective, and you might be prone and take some damage.
Correct. If you want that cover, you're going to pay for it by generating a PSR.
So not much else I'd go over on this map other than I tried to use those trenches. I think they'd be good for hiding vehicles, but then you hit woods, not the main ones, but I'm going to call the secondary landing strips there. Um, there's so much damn line of sight blocking on here that I've got a VTOL with tag and semi-guided, which that helps a lot for the first like turn or two, but then it just devolves into a brawl. And battle armor hiding in that heavy woods in the center of the map, especially if they had like was it the mimetic armor or something. At that point, you're going to have like a plus 52 TMM. You're not going to dislodge that.
Yep. So the map's working as intended. It's funneling you to the center so you can fight over the hill. If you bring snipers, you will have a map that your sniper will thrive on. This is not it, unless you clear out those woods. And then you at least have some sort of line of fire to the middle.
I think we're good here.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Oh, this is another one I was lucky enough to practice on, and I think it's very clever.
All right. So this is actually the old version of the map. It's been updated since. All right. So next map up we have is the Domination map. No special name for this one. It's just Domination.
So I was lucky enough to practice this on the old version. I see some spice removed and some additional spice added. So this looks like it'll be a fun one.
There shouldn't be too much spice added. It's mostly I trimmed down some of the hedges and got rid of some of the roads, so there's at least some place for mechs to walk without generating a PSR for turning.
With a bunch of 4-5 pilots, I appreciate that because I was sweating it trying to turn one hex.
Dang, maybe I should have left more of it in.
So
Well,
tell me about this map because it looks kind of city like, but I know those are only like level ones in the middle there.
yeah, so most of these buildings off to the sides are level 1 and or level 2. Some of them, like, just you're going to be starting east-west, so starting here, and it's domination. These are the 3 objectives that you're going to be fighting over. All of the buildings that are not these 3 right here uh, are construction factor 100. So you can, in theory, stand your Atlas on that building. Just make sure nobody shoots it with a small laser or a machine gun and you don't go tumbling down. So there are elevation differences for these buildings. In fact, let me clear these out. And that way I can give you a visual so you can see what I'm talking about. So these are height 2. Nope, not there. These are height 2, and it's going to be mirrored right here and right here. There's some other height 2 buildings floating around, like right here, right here. It's going to be mirrored. But essentially, if you really want to, you can be standing on these buildings and use these level 2s as cover. The only caveat is they can shoot the building out from under you and you can fall if your mech is too heavy.
So what you're saying is tag the building that the mech is standing on, since you wouldn't be able to shoot through it necessarily, and then just plunk just enough in there to drop it below the tonnage. Got it.
Yes, and not in so many words. So these are to give you cover if you want to not be on the objective, but these are the objectives right here. These 3 lone buildings. They're level 1, I do believe. No, they're level 2 buildings. At least they should be. Last time I checked.
Yeah, they're level 2 because I was able to hide mechs behind them.
Yeah. All right. So working as intended. They're level 2 buildings with 150 construction factor, and they're reinforced structure. You may enter any of these buildings, including the objective buildings, and you may destroy any of these buildings, including the objective buildings. If you destroy an objective building, it is gone. You cannot score the objective anymore for either player, and there's no penalty for destroying it. But just know that you'll have less opportunity to score points if you do so. But so will your opponent.
So unlike King of the Hill, where it was you score for units in the pit, this is you have to score. You score if you have more units than the enemy, right?
Correct. If both players have an equal number of units within an objective zone, and the objective zone is every hex touching and including the hex that has the building. So all 7 of these hexes, uh, whoever has the most gets the objective score for that matter, which is 5 points per round per building that they control. If both players have an equal number of units, it is considered contested, and nobody gets the points for it. And as usual, for all of these objectives, which we didn't mention in King of the Hill, but it's true for there too, battle armor and infantry must be dismounted to count for contesting the objective area, and VTOLs must be landed to count for contesting the objective area. So that's the same for here in Domination, and also on King of the Hill or Lord of the Pit. If you want to contest it with the VTOL, you got to land that sucker down there.
I think this is an interesting one because most of us are going to immediately bum rush for the center of the objective there with our fastest unit, so you get a nice little, uh, skirmish battle. But the deployment zones are not necessarily close; like it's deceptively far from the first objective, what I'm going to call in each of the players' home turf. It's still like a good 15 hexes from deployment to those first objectives, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's forest here. If you could go through it or over it, you might be able to get there quicker. But it's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hexes as the crow flies or as the VTOL flies to get there.
And how many turns did you have to do there? And you're right next to the end of the map.
Yeah, quite a bit. So, if you've got a ground bound unit that's not very quick, it's going to take you a few turns to get there. But you do have line of sight to that center building for a majority of the time as you're walking toward it, or you can, depending on where you're standing.
Now, I'm a cheeky player, and when you said enter the building, kind of want to do that, but it says basement unknown. Is it a true random basement roll every time, or is it set so that we play it once, we figure it out, we can cheese it?
I do not have random basements turned on as of right now, so whatever basement is there is what it's going to be currently. There may not be a basement if that rule isn't turned on, so your mileage may vary.
My mileage may find out in the next 10 minutes here.
Actually, I mean, you can check it real quick if you want.
So one of the other tricks I think on this map is the fact that that wall there prevents you from seeing the other person's near objective. Um, that's going to be a challenge because you kind of have a freebie to the enemy to keep scoring, and this is, what was it, 5 points per holding and capping it at 60 points. So
Correct.
realistically, you only need 12 captures, and if the game goes on too long, your enemy is going to get that just from sitting, a 200-point piece of battle armor on it.
Yeah, and one thing to note is these are mostly hill. There is level 1 buildings on top of a level 12 hill. And one thing that I don't think I've added to the packet yet is that I mean, it's high enough to where nothing can jump over it, but you can fly over it with VTOLs. So that is still fair game if you want to use all that movement on your VTOL going up to level 13 to get over these hills.
No, thank you. A lot easier to go around them.
It definitely is. But there is the option to do so.
You also got plenty of woods there, so if you do want to camp the center objective, you're pretty much going to have situations where somebody can get a rear shot on you and be in woods, or just, simply shooting from the woods into the center. That's going to be ugly.
Yeah. This center objective is going to be where all the fighting happens, or at least the vast majority of it. I mean, you do have inroads if you're fast, or if you can jump, or if you have something that can fly. You can start targeting your opponents near objective from like turn 1 or 2, because you start right here, or you can start right here. Now, let's make this bigger. You can start right in this area and then just kind of walk over these buildings. Then this is a level 2 building, yes, but you can just walk over it and walk over this level 1, and then you're on your way to your opponent's objective. It is not a safe space. So you can tailor your strategy however you like.
And the buildings, once destroyed, can't be captured by the enemy.
Correct. If a building is gone, it is gone, and so are all the objective points with it.
So there's your pirate tip of the day: is maybe you want to whittle down that building a little bit so that if you do get in a situation where you're not going to hold it, screw it, you can just nuke the building. But, the free kicks, free punches, and everything, if you don't have any better shots, maybe consider shooting an objective.
Correct. I mean, nothing wrong with throwing free shots at an unmoving target when you've got nothing. Like, I mean, in theory, you could force your opponent to come after you if you put some sort of LRM unit here and start lobbing shots with a spotter over here onto their objective and just whittle down their building and force some pressure. You
You
didn't hear
know,
that from me.
and I was thinking about just going straight beelining it from the corners, the most obvious play. But that whole starting at the bottom and using that southern rail, or the top rail, I guess, to kind of get behind the hill, that is going to be an interesting move.
Yeah. So don't just bum rush the middle and expect you'll get free points on yours. You can do that. You can have a gentleman's agreement with your opponent, but it's not a guarantee.
Any other tricks for this map?
I think that's the only thing I can think of because I haven't even played on it yet.
Oh, shameful display.
But I did make it, so I do know it pretty well. All right, I think we're pretty much done with this one. What do you think, Pirate?
I really like this because I like the domination style, and this is a change on what we normally play, which is like quadrants. So this one as well, being uneven, where there is one closer to the one player versus another, and having that screen, you get a kind of a base defense vibe from it. I'm really enjoying this, but also I think we'll come out of this tournament with a lot more people understanding how to enter buildings.
Oh, yeah. Climb mode is your savior. Just keep clicking it until it tells you what you want to see.
All right.
All righty. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Now, this is another pretty map. I haven't seen this one yet.
Okay, and this one is what we're calling the Death Race Relay map. We all love and know how Death Race Relay works, right? So we don't have to comment on it. But we're gonna anyway. So it's east-west deployment, and your deployment zone is the usual 3 hexes, which is covered by this little end zone here in white.
Now, is that pavement? Is that heavy snow? Is that something slippery? I'm already a little scared there because it looks like an awesome touchdown zone, but I'm suspicious.
It should just be snow, if I'm not mistaken, or at worst, heavy snow. Which
Heavy
does
snow.
heavy snow do anything for you? Yeah, it is heavy snow.
I think heavy snow is maybe a movement penalty of some sort.
Really? Oh, well, I didn't know that at the time, but I know now. So your end zone and starting area is heavy snow. Deal with it. But it's Death Race Relay. The objective is to get within either one hex of or within that hex that's in the very middle of the map at 2009. And that is where the objective area is. And all of these surrounding hexes that are a little bit more purple than you're used to, those are going to be where you roll to see if you score for Death Race Relay, which, as we all know, is a 7 or higher, or a 5 or higher if you have an active probe.
Now, there's a light purple, like a fuchsia, and then like a burgundy, a dark purple. So it's just the light purple and the hex itself that scores, right?
Correct. The dark purple is just there to differentiate, so that way you know when you're not in the objective area anymore.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I love that it's a level 1 hex because I think we have all learned about going prone with our mechs and high piloting skill to try to hide just that extra little turn.
Yep, and you can do it if you want. Just to let you know, these lighter hexes are ice, so watch out. And one thing that not everybody knows about ice is that you can shoot at it to destroy it. So if you want to clear yourself a path, that is an option you can take.
Now, it's terrain factor 40, and I have an average tonnage of 100 in my list. Am I going to fall through automatically?
So it's level 0 and there's no water under it, so I don't know exactly how that's going to work. At least there shouldn't be any water in it.
Okay, good.
So I'm curious because I didn't test it to find out, but I'm assuming it just goes away if you break it. But I could most definitely be wrong, and you could fall to your frigid death there, possibly. But I didn't design it that way. I just designed it to be, ice that you can shoot to clear it out of the way to get to the center.
So it's a PSR if you don't shoot it, but if you do, gives you a clearance. Got it.
Yeah, it's PSR. I think just walking on it, and there's a roll to see if you break the ice and all that. So you might clear the ice just running through it if you have a heavy enough net.
And I see lots of rough, heavy woods, elevation changes. There's a lot going on to slow down movement here.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, they gave you your little sniper nest. So each side has these 2 level 1 hill hexes that are behind a level 2. So you can perch your sniper there and take pot shots at the center all day long. No complaining, sniper players. One thing to note, though, is that there is a line of heavy jungle here. Light jungle, sorry. And if I'm not mistaken, jungle either does or gives you a penalty. I think jungle gives you a penalty on PSRs. So it's one thing to watch out. There is also some heavy jungle up here if you really want to use it as cover or to hide your mech as the running back to score for you. You have some options. You're not going to be exposed for the entire time because there are some hills that are blocking line of sight on the corners. It's just you're pretty much wide open in the middle. I mean, there is forests here. You can use them as cover as you run up to try and score, but this is going to be a shooting gallery for those of you that did bring snipers. You're welcome.
Now is deployment still within 3, right?
Yeah, it's within 3, so you're going to be starting within those 3 snow hexes there. I specifically extended the map so you have this little touchdown end zone for every time you score. You don't have to go to the edge, you just have to get to the white, the heavy snow section.
And as a player, I'm already trying to count hexes, and I think it looks like 20 from deployment to adjacent to that center there, and that's 20 at a full tilt, everything turning, etc.
So if you got a dasher, you can make it turn 1.
Ooh.
But then you've got a dasher.
And you have to live with having a dasher, which I would say no offense to dasher fans, but is there really one?
Well, liking the dasher is an offense. So
Anyway,
we're not biased here at all.
now smoke and fire and ignition, that all of that's turned off, right?
Yeah, none of that. So you can't start. I don't want the servers to melt down from having to calculate burning woods hexes every single turn. No smoke, no fire. You can still destroy woods hexes with just shooting at them normally, but no lighting fires, please. We want our servers intact and I have to reset them every game halfway through it.
Now, besides being visually pleasing, I really like this map, but there's one thing that I don't understand.
Go for it.
So, out of the deployment zone, you've got these ridges that are 3 long, and then you have a gray hex next to all of them. That looks intentional, but I can't figure out why.
Oh, I was originally going to put something else there, but I removed it and just put snow. I was going to put some water, but I decided uh, there needs to be some more running lines, so we'll just put some snow there.
I was
That
thinking
way you can go around the outside and use these level 2 hexes as cover when you go back to score.
that's fair. I was trying to figure out if there was like, you know, you stand here and it's kind of like, was there battle bots? Like you can get kicked real easily or something. But it future proofs it for a future map. So cool.
Correct. Yeah. So if people feel like once the mechs got to the middle and they survived that one turn, or units, whatever they may be using, they were impossible to shoot at after, then we can adjust. And these maps are pretty much locked in for this event as you're looking at them right now. But I am open to making adjustments and changing them for future events. So give me any feedback you guys have. If you don't like any of these maps, or if there's a map you absolutely hate and there's a consensus that a lot of people don't like them or don't like it, I can scrap it and you won't have to deal with it next time.
It's being real hard on it. These, like I said, they're visually pleasing, mechanically, they're very interesting. I'm real excited.
All right. Any other insights you can glean just by glancing at it? Because I know you haven't played it yet. So
No, the sniper nest is good. That's, I was complaining about sun cobras on board of the pit not being effective, but this is one where I'd take two, stick them there. Um, the rough on the level fours surrounding the center is also interesting because that means if you were able to get something up there, it's probably going to get hit by stuff in the middle, and those roughs will make it take another PSR.
correct.
Um, yeah, and those trees, the sunflowers of trees, is nice line of sight blocking. I really just want to get some mechs on there and play around with it. I think it's going to be fun trying to navigate those little twists and turns, but that is a real fun part of Data Death Relay, is just trying to wiggle and turn and not fly off the side of the map. While doing so, we're getting shot to pieces. So, yeah, it's a very interesting map.
Yeah. And the specific reason I put these woods here and not made them light woods, I made them heavy. They block a little line of fire. And B, also, you got to decide whether or not, like if you have a hovercraft that's very fast, like an Epona or something, whether or not you're willing to take those turns going quickly and risk flying into those trees. So the zigzags are there for a reason. You can run right through them with the mech and get the cover, or you can run around them and try to get to the other side quicker. Trying to give you guys meaningful choices, as it were.
And you can always find the view all possible moves button if you want to see all the crazy colors. But yeah, love this map.
All right, I think we're pretty much done with this one. Okay, and here we go. This is the fourth map of the day, and there are 6 missions. So we'll get into the other one after this. We're counting down here, and this one has changed the most since its original inception, as you can see, Pirate.
Well, I didn't look at it the first time. All I'm doing is having flashbacks to the Crush the Head map from Falcon Heat. So already sweating.
And that's where I got a lot of the inspiration from, actually. So there are some very tall buildings here. I'll point them out. So not all of them are going to be ridiculous skyscrapers, but these right here are all going to be, well, no, not that one, but all of these buildings back here and off to the sides, the ones that are, not really in the way, they're off to the side, to be a doodad slash obstacle course. These buildings are all height 11. They should be very high, and you remember, all buildings are destructible. You can blow them up. You can walk into them. Some of these are reinforced structures, so I suggest against that with any light mechs. Or you might blow up your own mech, try to enter a reinforced structure building. These are all reinforced structure, but most importantly, now that I've got all the ones that are height 11 out of the way, let's undo that, and I'll show you which ones are actually interactable in any meaningful way. These are all height 1 and height 2 little perches, just like on the domination map. So these blue lines represent level 2, and the ones behind them represent level 1. These are all construction factor 100. So every building you see here is destructible. If it's in your way, you can blow it up, and it's crushed the head. So if they decide to hide their commander in or behind a building, you can knock it down and get rid of their hiding place if you so choose.
Now, double blind's not on, so you'll be able to see the commander the whole time. That'll mimic more like what we do on tabletop, right?
Correct. I'd like to make it as tabletop friendly as possible so that if people want to emulate this later on, it's definitely viable. Really hard to do double blind on the table, let me tell you.
We just tell people you can't.
Yeah, that's probably the easier way to do it. But there are some forests here. These are light woods for the most part, and there's 2 heavy woods with swamps in the middle. So you don't even have to take the PSR, because if you jump into a swamp, you automatically get stuck. And maybe you can fall and get stuck for taking the PSR jumping into heavy woods here. So keep that in mind.
Not a deterrent though, because sometimes, damn it, I want that high TMM, and I'm willing to risk needing to roll a 5+ to get out of the swamp next turn.
Fair enough. I mean, you are going to be in a heavy woods surrounded by light woods and a heavy woods on one side. So it
So,
may be worth it given your mileage.
so this looks like a very Heidi map, but also I think this would be one where a very aggressive commander would try to pressure and force down somebody, because the first thing you see is, well, there's a lot of places to hide. But the second thing you see is there's a lot of straight fire alleys north to south. So if you get a commander who doesn't move quick enough, you could probably punch them out of existence pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the ends of these maps, or of this map, I should say, is pavement. So you will be having to make some sort of PSR just to get to the other side of the map, especially right here in this section. You kind of have to turn to get through here. So good, make your PSRs.
And I see some random, was it pawns is probably the right word in the middle of the map.
Yeah, and they're there to provide some variation. If you really want to give yourself partial cover, you can get it by standing in that little depth 1 pond. If you got heat sinks in your legs, you can get that extra heat, dealt with off of there too. Just adding some variety. If you want to hide your commander, you can go prone in a depth 1 water hex, and you will be immune, I'm pretty sure, to being shot at, because they can't quite get to you, which might be an oversight.
You say that, however, death from above exists.
Also true. But do you have any jump jets on your list, Pirate?
We're not going to talk about my weaknesses. I can still say that. I just kind of like belly flopped into the middle of the pond, repeatedly.
Okay. So this may be updated to have at least one more hex of depth 1 water touching it, like these hexes to the north and south. That way, if you do go prone, you have to hide 2 of your units down there. which I guess you could hide both your officers. We'll see. Maybe I'll do 3 hexes of water right in here just to make that not something that's possible.
Can you charge prone units?
No, you cannot. So the thought of hiding a mech in there was, originally why I placed those there. But now that I think about it, hiding in the depth one water is, I think, making you immune because you cannot cross that water boundary with any sort of firing.
But that takes away the tactical advantage of bringing Crusaders
Wait,
or Wasp with leg weapons.
actually, can you kick through water?
You can do you can do physicals, but you have to. What if you stuck 2 mechs prone into the water?
Well, you can't. There's only 1 hex.
Well, no. I meant if you make it too wide, then you just put another friendly mech in there.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I was thinking. Like, oh well, no, because then you can put both of your officers in those water hexes adjacent to each other, and they're keeping everybody out. That's why I said, oh, maybe I have to make it 3 hexes.
Just make
Then
them
you put
both.
half your list in there.
If you
But
how you win the game, go jump in a lake.
literally, so this may be revised by the time it goes live to add some more water hexes here, or I may just remove these outright if it's too abusive.
This,
Or
this is why playtesting is important.
definitely. But if you can melee while they're in depth one water, then I will leave them as is, because if they want to get kicked at a -2 for being prone and adjacent, that's on them.
But you're a hex below, so I don't think you can.
That's right. Okay, maybe I'll drop these hexes down to level 1, so that way they can't do that.
Hmm.
That way you can punch them through the water. You can't shoot them through the water. I don't know. How do you? Maybe I can make a hex of water that's just floating there. Don't know if that's possible. But either way, the water is either going to get removed, which is the simple option for me, or expanded. One or the other when this does go live.
I like the expanded option because I want to see somebody just be like, well, if I take 4 units and I drop them all prone and wait 15 turns, then I tie with my opponent and score nothing.
And yeah, that's going to be a detriment for sure.
Anyway, the other thing I like about this is the heavy amounts of woods, but also that's a curse as well because you might be like, aha, I'll stick my commander in these woods. Well, the woods are still destructible, so if somebody does end up nuking it, now you're on rough, which is +1 on the PSRs. So there's going to be some people caught off guard by that, uh, you know, tactic Deviant showed me of shoot the woods and then do a kick.
Oh yeah, especially if you go to that heavy woods hex with a swamp. Can you have a rough swamp?
I don't know. Sounds like Florida, but maybe.
Yeah, it does. Huh. Well, I'll let you guys figure that out while you guys are fighting in this. But other than this little water detour that we talked about for like 5 minutes now, is there anything else that you can pick out just by looking at this map, Pirate, with your trained professional mech warrior eyes?
My professional eye says I want to see people skid into buildings.
That's what I'm hoping for.
So it's trained for destruction of usually of my own damn mech. But no, I mean this again, line of sight blocking, like I mentioned, alleyways where especially if you get a crippled commander, he might not be able to move out of an alleyway. I think even though it's an east-west deployment, a lot of the game is probably going to accidentally be played north-south. So yeah, I'm excited to get on it.
Yeah, one thing to note, this was all pavement at one point, but due to feedback and people complaining about constant PSR checks, I lessened the pain of PSRs just a little bit. Took out about maybe 2/3 of the map worth of, or 2/4 of the map, a half of the map worth of pavement to give you guys a nice green field to fight over.
Pay for piloting.
Oh yeah, I still left a good bit of asphalt in there. Maybe I will add some more water just to make more PSRs.
Add water with ice on it.
Ooh, now you're speaking my language. That sounds better.
In fact, you basically have like from the top right to the bottom left here, you can make a nice little like zigzag lightning shape.
Ooh, I see exactly what you're talking about. Maybe I will do that.
Because then you got like basically the map's cut in half. So once you cross the, was it crossing the Delaware or something, then you can start really hammering on your opponent.
All right. Well, that pretty much sums this up. There's not much to talk about for Crush the Head. You get 10 points for each of your officers that are still alive, and you get 20 points for each of your opponent's officers that you kill, or 10 points for each one that you put into force withdrawal if you don't kill them.
Oh, hold
Uh,
on. Officers. I thought this was Crush the Head where there's a commander.
oh, yeah. Well, there's two. So the head is now two people, and each officer is one of your two highest BV units. So you don't get to cheese it by saying, your 500 point spider is your officer and jump him around 10 hexes every turn.
Crush the Hydra.
That's not a bad idea. Actually, I'm going to change it right now. Okay, so anything else? Or we pretty much done here with Crush That?
Think we're good.
Alrighty. And here we are, the last map and the biggest and the bestest, saved for last.
Oh, this one has a lot of math that I've been trying to squeeze out of. I'm gonna have to try it on this new map because it has this changed since the last format?
Slightly. There's been some slight adjustments. I've added some more. There was a change log that I made when I edited the map. So if you want a quick run over, you can check out the change log. But I'll do a slight quick change log here. I added some more depth zero to give more crossing for non-jumping mechs. I got rid of the forest in front of these objective buildings right here, which are only going to be used for bunker busting. And that's pretty much it. I also made the buildings donuts, so they're all 6 hexes. Even these funky looking, B2 bomber buildings here at the top and the bottom. So they're all even now. So
So wait,
no differences between all 3 of the buildings for each side.
now you're talking bunker busting. You're talking the other capture the flag. So which map is this?
This is actually both. It was a big map, and I figured I could get a bit more use out of it. So you'll notice Death Race Relay is more of our standard map size. This is significantly bigger. This is 48, I do believe, by 24 hexes. So almost an extra third bigger than what we're used to in each direction. And we're going to be playing 2 different missions, as you pointed out. The first one being Capture the Flags. So for Capture the Flag, because there's going to be 2 of them per player. These little B2 bomber looking buildings are not going to be used. I mean, you can still interact with them or blow them up if you want, but they're not important for Capture the Flag. Capture the Flag is going to be east-west deployment, so you get your standard 3 hexes on each side, and the objective is to get to your opponent's 2 hex donut buildings, capture a flag at each one of them, and bring them back to either one of your 2 hex donut buildings. So just because you capture the flag in the north doesn't mean, or you pick it up in the north, doesn't mean you have to score it in the north. You can score it in the north or the south as you see fit.
Sorry, I was counting hexes and I still need 9 turns to get to the flag with my Atlas.
Yeah, so having fast mechs is probably going to be a bit of a boon in this particular setup here. Having slow mechs is probably going to take you a while. I mean, you may be able to get there, but getting back, especially if they start, body blocking you, might be a bit hard.
So I see some design elements here for capture the flag, but I noticed little things like it appears to be some hidden roads on this map.
That is correct. There are 2 stealth roads. I'm glad you caught that. They're right here and right here. So if you go out at a flat run along this line, you can make it all the way across the river and into your opponent's base. As long as you stay in that direction and you stay on the road, you will ignore that woods, if I'm not mistaken.
And in there, don't hovercraft or something, can't they go on roads or woods with roads in them?
If I'm not mistaken, yes, they can, which is partially why I added that in there. Give you a little bit more hovercraft friendly. This is a big map, so fast units are going to shine here to an extent, especially considering how you have to go from your starting zone over here all the way over here and then all the way back to touch the building. You don't have to go all the way to your starting area. You just have to touch your building and survive.
Now, can you touch any building, or does it have to be the ones, the lineup?
No, you can start in the north, capture the or pick up the flag in the north, and then run all the way down to the south if you really want to. You can get that hovercraft and run them all the way across that water.
I gotta remember, we're going over the map. I'm not strategizing.
By all means, if you want. These maps have been available for everybody to look at, so it's not really a head start. They've been out in the wild for quite some time, and I've been posting screenshots of what the maps look like. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody who's been paying attention. One thing to note for capture the flag, there are some nuances to this. There can only be 2 flags per player in existence at any given time. So once you pick up a flag with a unit, and let's say that unit gets crippled and it drops the flag immediately in its hex as soon as it's crippled, you can then pick it up with another unit that's adjacent next turn or during that turn if it happens to fall and get crippled somehow. Well, it's during the movement phase.
Can
So
can I ask some player questions?
by all means,
So capture the flag. Let's say that I drop the flag. Can my opponent pick up the flag? And if so, does it auto return the base?
no. Your opponent cannot interact with your flags, and you cannot interact with your opponent's flags. Once a flag is created, the only way to get rid of it is by scoring it at your structure. And then, once you score it at your structure, you are free to pick up another one from that particular building.
Can I voluntarily drop the flag?
No. Once a unit has the flag, the only way to get rid of it is for the unit to become crippled or destroyed. With the caveat that protomechs can do a handoff because you need 2 protomechs in a hex to count for any sort of objective. So you can have one protomech, walk into the area to pick up the flag, another protomech be already in that hex, and then run the flag out immediately to another waiting protomech. So you always have to have 2 protomechs in a hex, or the destination hex, in order to have them holding onto the flag. It's just a little bonus I gave to protomechs, so maybe people would try and test them out on this particular tournament since they are legal.
Siren 2 protomech shoot on sight. Got it.
They are very fast.
So if I wanted to relay it with a mech, I would have to basically cripple my own mech. And luckily there is some water, so got it.
You're not wrong. If you can find a way to cripple your own mech, there's also buildings you can stand on top of, like the Stealth Bomber buildings over here. So you can crash your mech into them, stand on top of it, shoot the building, get the mech to fall and cripple it or destroy it. Whatever shenanigans you're willing to do, other than run the actual flag with the unit that has it. So if you can get creative and find a way to cripple your own mech, you will be giving your opponent objective points, combat objective points for that. But it is what it is. I'm not going to say no to player creativity. You can make it happen if you so wish. Some other things to point out here: there are some little sniper nests. There's one right here. It's mirrored on everything's mirrored on this map across the center line right here. So there's another little one right here. A line of elevated woods here. So Another one right here on each side, right here. So your snipers do have options. There's this perch right here, which is level 2 with level 1 behind it. So you can stand here and have free reign for the whole map. There's only like 2 level 3 hexes, which are right here and right here. Everything else should be level 1 or level 2, and then buildings right here blocking line of sight.
I do like those perches in the middle of the map, though. I could see, kind of like two opposing sides get on the rampart and start flinging at each other while covering the river crossing.
Yeah, definitely. Or I can see people just completely ignoring the middle and going along the south or the north, trying to get the objective for capture the flag anyway.
Now, the capture the flag, of course, I loved Unreal Tournament, so I did a lot of that. But bunker busting, is it still east-west deployment?
Actually, no. That's a good question, Pirate. Bunker busting is going to be southwest and northeast deployment. And there's a decent reason for that. And that's because the map is quite big, and I wanted to give you guys at least a bit of a head start for those of you that brought some slower units. Because you're going to have to do a whole lot of shooting at some of these buildings, or standing on top of them and then kicking them, whatever you got to do. But the objective for bunker busting is to destroy your opponent's buildings, including the stealth bomber buildings. So you will be deploying northeast or southwest, and those 3 buildings that are the closest to your starting zone are yours. So you don't shoot those, you keep those undestroyed, and you will get points for keeping them alive at the end of the match. The entire building, not each hex.
So I gotta destroy entire hexes. Got it. Or
Yeah,
destroy entire buildings, rather.
correct. Destroying hexes will earn you victory points as it stands now. It was not that way to begin with, but because people are actually at least trying and going to the effort to destroy buildings, I figured I should reward them for at least attempting the objective a little bit. So for each hex that you destroy in one of these 6 hex buildings, you'll earn 5 objective points. And the way buildings work is once you destroy more than 50% of their hexes, the rest of the building collapses. So essentially, the first 3 hexes are worth 5 points, and that 4th hex is actually worth 15 points because the other 2 hexes will collapse with it.
No, didn't know that.
Yeah, at least that's how building rules work out of the book, if I'm not mistaken.
Now go stand over there and let me shoot you.
Uh, no dice. So this one, I figured having you walk through the middle, which is a shorter distance of only 24 hexes, which is closer, actually slightly smaller than a standard map, would be a little bit of a boon for the heavier mechs. And also, you can go from whatever corner of your deployment zone in the corner to here. And then I figured this building would be the hard one for those tryhards that want to get all 3 and max out their combat score, or objective score, I should say.
I'm glad I brought a spotter and 80 LRMs.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, each hex you destroy will be worth 5 points, but also each of your buildings, the entire building. So let's say an opponent destroys 3 hexes, but they don't get the collapse and have all the building hexes collapse. You get 5 points for keeping that building alive. Or your opponent gives you 5 points for not destroying the building, however you want to look at it.
Is there a bonus for having the building completely untouched?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, the bonus is you hopefully had a close game because you were busy shooting each other instead of the buildings.
We haven't done a lot of destructible based missions, so I don't have a lot of words of cheesy wisdom here, but this sounds very exciting.
Yeah, so each building is worth 15 points. The only way to score a perfect score on this is to destroy all of your opponent's buildings and keep your buildings, all 3 of them, intact. And each building hex has only a 60 construction factor. This is nerfed in the recent building patch notes from 60 or 260 down from 100. So I figured 60 was at least fair. If I brought it down to 50, you could just stand a Wolverine or something on top of him and collapse a hex really quick that way.
I will say, like all the others, this is a very pretty map and mechanically interesting. So I'm excited to do little brain work and try to figure out how to go narrow path and weave and bob to get to where I need to as quickly as possible.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying just looking at it. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy playing on it too. This map is actually kind of inspired by, well, fairly inspired by a game I used to play, or I do play on occasion, called Dota: Defense of the Ancients. So some of you may recognize some design features like the river going through the middle and the base with the entrances and locations and stuff. And it's mirrored perfectly, which is not the case in Defense of the Ancients. So hopefully it'll be fairly balanced and it'll be fun games. And I'm hoping to get some feedback on these maps.
Man, I was playing Dota when it was a mod for Warcraft 3 on BattleNet. Now I got nostalgia.
So was I. I played it so much, I almost didn't graduate high school. But that's neither here nor there. I really hope you guys enjoy these maps, and if not the maps, then maybe the missions. If there's something you don't like, give me feedback. You can DM me if you don't want to say it out in public. If you hate my guts for whatever reason, by all means, throw it in public or DM me. I'm good with either way. If you don't like the missions or if you want to see something changed, let me know. It's pretty much set in stone. It's pretty much set in stone at this point for this time around, but there's always next time. So if you want to see something altered in any way, shape, or form, just let me know, and I'll try and accommodate it as best I can.
I'd encourage public discourse because at the end of the day, a lot of us are thinking that. Even if it's just something simple like, what if I push my opponent into the buildings and cause a collapse? Will that do more damage?
It might, depending on how big their mech is and how small your mech is. One thing to note, these are height 2 buildings on level 2 hexes, so these are going to be the highest, and these non-objective buildings are 100 reinforced construction factor.
So you're saying we can stand in them and get like super armored turrets. Got it.
Pretty much, if you so choose. But then you're in a building and, there's penalties for being in a building. Not much, but they are real good for giving yourself armor. Any other questions or anything that's standing out to you, Pirate?
Only other feature we didn't talk about is these ridges south of the top left building and north of the bottom right building. So I haven't figured out what I want to do with those ridges yet, whether I want to like assault one building and then like go up and over to start attacking the other. But those ridges, there's a mind puzzle there of some sort. I just got to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, these were put here intentionally to kind of block line of sight from one building to the other. That way you couldn't put a sniper in the middle, or well, if you have to put a sniper on the ridge if you want to kind of cover both of them. But there's also this building here, this building here. So it's going to be real hard to cover, actually almost impossible to cover both buildings from this ridge.
No, but you could get onto that ridge, turn left, and I don't know if LRMs will reach from the ridge to the bunker, the bomber-shaped one, but no, we'll have to play it and figure it out.
It actually probably should. I mean, LRMs have a range of 20 something X's, so.
Yeah, but I like PPC, so if it's over range like 15, I start losing interest.
Well, you can hit all but one hex at range 15. So, in theory, you could prop a little PPC boat up there. And remember, this is the only level 3 hex on the map. You could prop one right up there, too, and then just have free reign. So, the only other way to maybe be able to get line of sight is from this level 3 hex. Because then you go from 3 to 5, and you can see over these buildings right here.
Mm.
But then you're kind of far away, so you're likely going to be at long range.
But anything down there in the field, you've got elevation on top of them, so all of a sudden this line of sight blocker becomes a firing platform. So it's going to be interesting.
Correct. So I'm giving you guys options. If you want to bring a sniper, you got to move them to get there, but you do have your little sniper perches. And if you want to bring a bunch of fast boys, you can have a field day running all over this big map. Some of my intentions that I'm going to be clear on is that sometimes I've seen it in missions where the best way to play the objective is to not engage your enemy for like the first 5 turns and then engage. And with making the maps bigger, I'm hoping to eliminate that. So you have to commit early if you have some slower mechs or mechs that might have mobility issues or other units like a demolisher or something that is going to have a hard time getting across the river or getting up and around hills or through forests. So if you're going to have to commit early in the match and not hold out and maybe wait for your opponent to come to you and shoot them to pieces while you can't, because hey, they could just get up on a perch and plunk away at your little building from far away and force you to come to them.
I can't think of anything else other than we need to get practice games in, or we'll see you on the battlefield.
All right, well, that's what I like to hear. Well, any closing thoughts on these maps as a whole, or these missions as a whole, Pirate?
I like the missions because they're not just a cookie cutter of the previous ones we've already done, especially, Crush the Hydra. That is a nice play on something we've all standardized about having one cheeky speedy boy. Um, I do enjoy the elements of data death relay that are fun. It looks like you've really worked hard to incorporate those in the map. The maps are all visually interesting, like I've already said, and they're not just from Grasslands 1. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I think we've seen enough Grasslands 1 for this season.
I mean, even with Mega Meg Random Mech Generation, no one ever turns on Lunar.
No, no. And I
But
was considering changing up the theme for this one, but I think this one works out all right.
it's got enough greens. Like, I wasn't bashing this one. It's got enough different greens that this still looks very fresh and verdant, almost like an Imperial Gardens or something.
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of the vibe I was going for.
yep. So no, I think these will be interesting to look at and they'll keep interest. But also, again, you put some thought into how everything line of sight and movement works. So it's not just going to be like, here's a solid line for you to burn through, and best of luck.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get some really interesting matches. I'm going to try and record as many as I can because I'm hopefully not going to be playing this time around. If I do have to play, or if we have an uneven number of players, maybe I can get a ringer in to play twice, or I can jump in if necessary. But uh, with that being said, uh, any closing thoughts, Pirate?
Nope. Encourage anybody that hasn't gotten their list in to get it in, and let's, even after the event's done, to be totally honest, these look like they got replay value.
And that's exactly what I was hoping for. Hopefully, it'll be nice and fun, and people will want to try them again after this event's over, and I can reuse them for the next event and tweak them if necessary. Uh, thank you for going over these maps with me, Pirate. Giving you not really a sneak peek, but picking your brain and picking my brain about what can go on some of these maps and missions. And hopefully, it's been insightful for everybody out there watching and planning on playing in the VPT or Jesty Open.
Thanks for having me, and I always appreciate an opportunity to ask teacher about the test we're about to take, just in case.
Never hurts. All right. Well, I think that does it for us. Go ahead and say later. Good night, everybody.
You don't tell me what to do. Adios, everyone.